It is February 26th, 2026, and all eyes are on Geneva today, where delegations from the US and Iran are participating in another round of indirect talks. And from all of the reporting that we've seen, it doesn't seem as though they're too close to making a deal. The Trump administration still has a long list of demands, and those demands are followed closely by the threat of an attack. But even though we have this growing US military buildup in the region around Iran, the question still remains: what exactly is the Trump administration planning, and what do they need to come into place in order to carry out those plans when it comes to not only the military attack, but also what the CIA is doing on the ground, as we do have reports of renewed protest. We got into all of the latest and what we should be keeping an eye on with a special guest earlier. So let's take a listen to that conversation now. Joining me now to discuss is Scott Ritter, a former UN weapons inspector and U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer. Scott, thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. Now, I want to get your take on the latest here, as I know that delegations from the US and Iran are in Geneva today for another round of indirect talks aimed at securing a potential nuclear deal. And this does come as the Trump administration has been building up US military assets in the region, threatening an attack if Iran doesn't comply with this reported very long list of demands. So, how do you view the current tensions? Do you have any hope for a deal here and kind of an off ramp for Trump, or does it seem like we are just buying time before the next attack?
I don't know. I mean, that's the honest answer. We can parse this out. We do know that the U.S. demands are non-starters. Anything dealing with Iran's missile program is a non-starter, and Iran's foreign policy in the region isn't going to be resolved by Iran capitulation, but rather solving the root causes of these problems. If you want Iran to stop supporting Hamas, maybe it's time for a free and independent Palestine state to be created. If you want Iran to stop supporting Hezbollah, maybe Israeli troops need to get out of Lebanon. If you want Iran to stop supporting the Houthi, maybe the United States and Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates stop declaring war against them, and Israel stop attacking the Palestinian people so the Houthi won't intervene. These aren't going to be resolved at this negotiating table. Iran has made it clear they're going to talk about one thing and one thing only, and that's the nuclear program. And Iran's intention is not to capitulate, but rather to do that which is necessary to convince the United States and the world, but especially the United States, that Iran does not have a military program, that Iran is not pursuing a nuclear bomb. And, this isn't Iran's first rodeo. If you remember back in June, on the eve of the Israeli surprise attack, the Iranians were pretty much creating the same text that they are now. The Iranians had said, we have a breakthrough. We're ready to, take these measures, and they're measures that restrict the scope and scale of enrichment, that dilute 60% down to levels, that are not worrisome, the whole thing. And then they got a surprise attack. Iran's preparing the same text now. The points that Iran is putting on the table today appear to be the same points that they were getting ready to put on the table back in June before they were bombed. But there's the problem. Points they were ready to put on the table back in June before they were bombed. The United States does not have a good track record when it comes to, negotiating in good faith. But there's a difference here. Israel took the lead in June, and Israel failed. And so, Donald Trump was able to find an off-ramp by, carrying out Operation Midnight Hammer, which he brags about all the time, and saying, I brought an end to the war. His story, he gets to tell it anyone he wants to. But this time, it's the United States in the lead. It's the United States that has deployed this, massive military capability into the region to carry out an attack that's supposedly designed to eliminate the Iranian regime altogether. I mean, people don't reflect on this, but before Jared Kushner, one half of the Kushner and Witkoff negotiating team, sounds like a New York law firm. Before he went to carry out the negotiations, was having meetings in the United States with Iranian expatriates, businessmen, et cetera, to form the next government of Iran. Because the United States policy is regime change. And so if you're an Iranian, you're like, wait a minute, Jared, quick question before we get to the nuclear portfolio. Did you really just meet with some people that are supposed to take over from my government? And if so, why are you here? Because we're here to negotiate a solution to the problem, to avoid conflict. Seems to me you've already made a decision, which means what's the purpose of this negotiation? And that's the question. What is the purpose of this negotiation? And to answer that, we have to understand, can these military strikes take place? What we're finding out is, again, issues that have been raised all along. I believe that the United States, let's put it this way. When you see reports being leaked out in the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, I think Politico, that says, General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is saying, we shouldn't go to war with Iran. We can't win. It's not a good idea, et cetera. When I look at what General Kane appears to be saying, because you parse it out, he never said we couldn't win. He never said Iran will beat us. But he says we're going to run out of ammunition. And that's a problem. They have a plan. The plan will succeed if they have enough ammunition. The plan will fail when they run out of ammunition. And so what he's saying is we have a sustainability problem. That's two different points. Because if it was, we can't win at any cost, I'd say these negotiations are that Trump will find a way out of this, using the negotiation path. But if you're saying we can win, but we just don't have enough ammunition, then the next question, because it always happens. I mean, you see, do you remember, when I said, do you remember? I remember, but you may not have been born. Desert 1, the Iran rescue mission in April of 1980, I believe. We flew Delta Force into the desert landing strip, preparing to fly into Tehran to rescue the American hostages that had been taken over when the Iranians took the embassy. The rescue mission, they launched 8 helicopters, and they needed 6 to be able to fly in order to do the mission. Only 5 could fly. Now, normally, the military, they had said, no debate, no question, no nothing. If we don't have 6, we don't go. That's a hard thing. But the operation's halfway through, and what happened on the ground in the desert, they're going, can we go with 5? Now, remember, you're not supposed to even consider that question, but now, can we go with 5? What can we do? Who can we leave out? What can we do? And they had that conversation before they realized that they couldn't go with 5. The reason why I bring this up is I can guarantee you the conversation that's taking place at the Pentagon right now is, okay, you say we need X amount of ammunition to carry this off. Can we go with X minus 20? What can we do to the plan so that the solution isn't X, but X minus 20? Can we still achieve the same outcome? And so they're thinking about that right now. And there's number crunching going on inside the Pentagon to see if they can do the X minus 20 solution. If they can, these negotiations are just a pretext to lull the Iranians into a false sense of complacency, and there will be a military strike. But if they come back and they say, as they did on Desert 1, nope, it's X. It's X 100%. And without that, we can't do it. And we can't get to X 100% right now in any meaningful time frame. Then the president will use these negotiations to come up with a face-saving mechanism. And you already see the rhetoric from it. The Iranians apparently are going to reduce the scope and scale of their enrichment to a very, very small level so that they can say, we still have enrichment. But there will be nothing about that enrichment program that would be conducive to operating on the level necessary for potential weaponization. It's a face-saving mechanism. They'll get rid of the 60% enriched uranium, dilute it down, get it out of the country. They'll do a whole bunch of stuff that allows them to say we still have a nuclear program, but the nuclear program will have been gutted to such an extent that it's incapable of being reconstituted, in any meaningful period of time to become a nuclear weapons program if that was ever the direction they want. I think the Iranians are putting that on the table. And I think Trump could take that and say, we succeeded. We don't, because Trump has said, my goal is no Iranian nuclear weapon. And so he could say, this is the deal. better than JCPOA? And to be honest, it would be, because there would be no sunset clauses that confuse the issue. From the American perspective, from the Iranian perspective, they're making some difficult compromises because it becomes things they said they didn't want. They don't want an Iranian cutout to the NPT. Article 4 says you can do X, Y, and Z, and yet Iran is being forced to say, well, we will accept further restrictions. But the Iranians don't want a war. They don't want a war. They want to move in a direction other than war. They want to work on, getting sanctions lifted and getting their economy back and helping the people. So Iran appears to be ready to make these very difficult compromises. The question now isn't whether the United States wants to do the right thing by peace. It's a question of, will the Pentagon come back and say, we can accomplish the goals and objectives of the X plan with X minus 20. And if they say they can do that, we're going to go to war. If they say they can't, Trump will have a face-saving way out of it.
And I think that that's a good thing to keep in mind as you're watching this play out, because I know a lot of people see it and they go, okay, is the Trump administration serious about a deal? And it's like, well, maybe they are for now, maybe they are for the current capabilities we have, but what does that look like 5 to 10 years down the road if they try to come back, which is another reason why Russia isn't jumping into a deal right now, because they're going, we don't want to have this fight again in 5 or 10 years down the road. We want to finish it now. When it comes to those goals and objectives for Iran specifically, how do you see it? Because I look at this and I go, okay, if they go in, let's say they carry out a series of decapitation strikes, they take out the Ayatollah, they take out Iran's president, let's say that they achieve all of that. That doesn't really put the U.S. in a position of complete and total control, because you also have guys that will be the replacements. You could see a version of in Venezuela where the government is still largely intact, even if you take out the top guy. So how do you see kind of those overall goals there?
Again, Rachel, I'm going to give you an answer because you know me. I'll answer any question if I'm in a position to do so with integrity and some facts. But a lot of speculation is built into this because I'm not privy to the war plan. So I have to read into statements that have been made, actions that have been done. But what we can see is that in December, the United States initiated something through Scott Bessent, through the Secretary of the Treasury, to collapse the Iranian rial, the Iranian currency, by denying them access to dollars. They did this through sanctioning, denying the ability to sell oil. And so there was a collapse. And Scott Bessent bragged about it. He went to Davos, the World Economic Forum, and he just basically said, look what we accomplished. And we did it without firing a shot. And look where we are. Took full credit for it. So the United States triggered something. What did they trigger? The desire was to trigger demonstrations in the streets. And early on in the demonstrations, I think the demonstrations began on December 28th. By the 30th, the Mossad's Farsi language social media is telling the people, we are here with you, not just in spirit, but on the ground side by side. This is before it went violent. The Mossad is saying, we are you, you are us, we're here together. And then it begins to go violent, directed violence. And the way the Iranian government has talked about it is that they were basically told to up the temperature, to hijack the demonstrations and turn them into, expressions of violence designed on purpose to generate an Iranian security reaction. So you're seeing cause and effect taking place. And as this is happening, you start to see other people get involved. You start to see different organizations, Mujahideen al-Khalq get involved. You see their American affiliate get involved. You see the Shah, the Shah's son, the monarchists get involved. You see the Kurds, PJAK, start to get involved. Everybody start to rise up and get involved. More militancy. And the mechanism of coordination is done through Starlink. Fascinating. I don't know if you saw the testimony that just took place 2 days ago, maybe in Congress, where the head of the National Endowment for Democracy was saying, "Oh yeah, We're responsible for what happened in Iran. We're the ones that gave them like 200 Starlink to do this. And you can see the congresswoman going, maybe we don't want to talk about this in an open forum. Maybe we don't want to, because he was taking credit. He said, yeah, we did that. We did that. There's between 70 and 100,000 Starlink terminals in Iran today. They're part of a longstanding State Department CIA program based upon what they call digital democracy, basically to infuse a denied area with internet capability that cannot be interdicted so that we can carry out mental warfare to bring in information designed to get these people to be against the government, to collapse the society from within, and then to control them, to give direction, to rise up in the streets, do that. This is what the Starlink thing was. And so this is happening. Then we start to see a program. Then we saw this in Syria. If you remember, when the Syrian thing first started, you had these community councils or whatever they called themselves. These were nothing more than fronts funded by National Endowment for Democracy and others using CIA money to give internet connectivity to these groups inside Syria that then went out and would generate actions that would get the Syrian government to respond violently. They would film it, and then they would send the clips out. And these clips are managed by professional information managers, CIA, and they get them into the hands of the people that need to. And next thing you know, there's a narrative. The Syrian government is gunning the Syrian people down. These are the worst people. We have to support the overthrow of the Syrian government. I mean, that just wasn't the case. There was a town up north whose name I can't remember right now, but they were talking about the Syrian government slaughtering the people in the streets. It actually turned out the other way around. The militants took over a headquarters building and slaughtered Syrian intelligence officers who were in the building running communication intercept operations. The murder was being done by the militants, not the Syrian government. But whenever the Syrian government responded, these film clips would show up and be broadcast out. That's just the way we saw that with the chemical weapons allegations about Syria. When the Syrian Air Force attacked, next thing you know, you have the white helmets out there in their full gear collecting information. And, the average person is going, damn, they're wearing full mop gear. This must be really dangerous stuff. And look at them, how carefully they're collecting that sample. But people who know, like, I don't know, me, look at it and go, that's a training suit. Can't protect from anything. And the collection techniques aren't collection techniques. This is theater. And it's being filmed and then broadcast out to confuse stupid people who don't know the difference between a real suit and a training suit, real, chain of custody collection and stuff done for TV. And that's what happened in Iran. People start releasing these clips designed to foster the notion that the Iranian government is killing tens of thousands of people. I mean, the number changed, 10,000, 30,000, 60,000, 80,000. And it's horrible. Mark Levin, they're murdering these people. And that just over and over, the monarchists come in, they're slaughtering that whole, it just comes. And then it's like, we have to come in. And the president jumps in. We are with you. Help is on the way. And it looked like that was going to be it. But what was it? It was supposed to be a concerted air campaign designed to decapitate the leadership and suppress security, so that then the CIA and everybody could take the demonstrations to the next level. But the military stepped in and said, boss, if we start this, we're probably not going to decapitate. And we ain't got enough to stop the missiles. And Israel was going, Donnie, over here. Tel Aviv. We can only absorb 700 missiles. If you don't kill the regime after 700 missiles, we're screwed. Only 700, baby. That gives you about 7 days. And my military is telling me that your military says they can't do it. So don't do it. Saudi Arabia is going, whoa, Donnie. Our oil fields over here sort of standing naked. You start doing this attack thing, they may shut us down and we can't defend and we lose our economy. Don't do it. And so they stood everything down. And now what's happened? It appears, if you take a look, they've started the demonstrations again. The students are in the streets starting to demonstrate. So they're starting to build up this momentum. They haven't gone violent yet, but what they're doing is they're getting the notion of an angry population. The Shah's son is back at it. They killed, we are with you. You are so strong. All the propagandists out there, the video clips coming out, the Starlink connectivity is doing it all again. But this time we have massive amounts of force in. So what will happen? Two things. One, we are going to decapitate their leadership, or at least try. The president has been speaking. Again, if I were in the intelligence service, I'd be totally white by now and probably bald, pulling my hair out, because this man just doesn't know when to shut up. I mean, let's just hypothetically say that I was working military intelligence and I pulled off a cool operation where I got a hold of a Chinese radar, advanced Chinese radar. Don't ask me how. We don't talk about that, but I got the guts of it and I brought it back, and our specialist radar people said, we can shut this thing off anytime we want to. We found the kill switch. And let's say I did the same thing with a Russian radar. Again, this is stuff we used to do during the Cold War. I don't know if we still have the units, but there's these units that used to do really cool things, and you end up working with really cool people, and you get really cool results like the kill switch. All right, so let's just say that I've done that. So this means that if we ever go to war against China, on the opening day, our prowlers and growlers and all this stuff will come in, and they've got a pod underneath their wing, and the guy in the back, sits there and goes, yeah, this is Maverick executing phase 4. Click, all the radars go off. And then we go in and kill everything, because that's what we're supposed to do. The American military is pretty cool. We could do a lot of really cool things. That doesn't mean I want to go to war. People, please don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying that, we're not bad at what we do. So the president's like, well, in Venezuela, they had all those Chinese and Russian radars that suddenly went off. They didn't work. I wonder how that happened. Someday I'll be able to tell you.
Right.
And if I were the guy, I'd be just sitting there going, you just screwed us. You just took all the work that we did. Lives were put on the line. Money was spent. And you just basically acknowledged that we shut down the Chinese and Russian radars. So now back in China and Russia, their smart people are going, we got a problem. Bring it in here, boys. Okay, what do we got? Where was the exposure? Let's go through this. Let's start thinking like an American. Where's the kill switch? And they go in and boom, 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 and they start hardening it up. So now when the next war comes in and Scott Ritter sitting in the back of a EA, I don't think we fly EA-6s anymore. Maybe we do, but an EF-18, and all right, execute. Phase Oscar. Click. Hey, Scott, the radars are still on. Just a second. Toggle. Click. I'm doing it, Scott. It's not working. The radars are on. The missiles are firing. We're screwed. We're gonna die. Boom! Shot down because we didn't shut down the radars. Thanks, Mr. President. You have a big mouth. But the point is, we're not just one solution. There's a lot of confidence on the part of the president. He is of the opinion that we know where Khamenei is. Now, this could be propaganda. He could be saying that. But what we do know is that the Israelis knew where a lot of people were on first night of the June war and killed a lot of people. How did they know that? I knew there was a problem. If you remember when they killed the Hamas guy that was in Iran for the swearing in for the inauguration of the Iranian president. And he went up to the special IRGC, condominium, and the Israelis threw a drone in there and killed him. Now, that means the Israelis could have flown the drone in and killed the president, could have killed the supreme leader. They were tracking this whole thing. They just decided to kill that guy when he was alone. But the signal they sent to the Iranians is, we can kill you anytime we want to. Now, I'm surprised they did that, because normally if I were the Iranians, I would have said, how'd they get the drone in? And I'd start looking for, all options, including, covert drone factories. Because it turns out there were a lot of covert drone factories in Iran working for the Mossad that enabled them to carry out the initial strikes during the sorry. And I warned, I'm on record as saying one of the first things that will happen is that Mossad is going to use a massive drone strike to decapitate, to eliminate, and all this stuff, because they've given away that capability by murdering this Hamas individual. Trump knows something, and this is key. Trump is under the belief that we have solved certain intelligence problems that will enable us to be far more effective in the opening phases of a military conflict. This gives him a lot of confidence. The Israelis have made it clear that they don't want missiles hitting their soil in large numbers. So the way we stop that is to flood the zone over western Iran and control the skies and the ground where these missiles would operate. They may get some leakers, one here, two there. Israel said they can take 700. But we also have layered our air defense so that a leaker may not survive. You know, the reason why the Iranians were successful before is they flooded the zone. They made everybody shoot off all their missiles, and then they had the radars talking. They confused them. The Iranians are very good at knowing how to do this stuff, and they understand how radars work, how to send a false signal here. What happens if you have a warhead dispense chaff cloud here? What signal that does do? Does it confuse the signal, create a white zone? Now you fire the other missile in through that white zone, hits its target. You know, they were very good at that. So they were doing this and they were getting good results. But what happens when you can't get the missiles launched that you need to launch to make this happen? And you start firing onesies and twosies. Suddenly the system isn't confused. There is no ghost in the machine. And we start shooting down the missiles. And then they're not impacting Israel. This is the goal and objective of the military. I've taken a look at the aircraft that we are just sending there. A lot of Wild Weasels. Wild Weasel is a special suppression of enemy air defense configured F-16. And they are supported by the electronic warfare aircraft that I talk about. They go in there, and their job is to take out air defense. And you're taking out air defense not just to come in and drop bombs on a target, but to be able to then put a blanket of air coverage over an area, a constant combat air patrol, which is looking for missiles getting ready to be launched. And then you come in, or like we did during the Gulf War, we have teams on the ground of special forces who are in there looking, finding, calling the airstrike. If the airstrike can't come in, they have their own capability. The Israelis did this in June. I was surprised. I was shocked when the Israelis released a video that showed one of their covert teams on the ground using a special missile to take out an Iranian missile before it could be launched. And the Israeli did that, I think, trying to send the signal that we're in control of everything. But if the Israelis had special operations forces on the ground doing interdiction of missiles, that's what we do too. That's what the British do. So I think all of this is going to be at play here. And the idea is to suppress the ability of the Iranians to launch mass attacks against Israel and against us, against Saudi Arabia, against Azerbaijan, against anybody. That doesn't mean one or two missiles aren't going to be launched and they may even get through, but they're not going to be able to do it. That's our plan. And I believe our military believes we can accomplish this if we have 100. X minus 20 means that we start doing this, and at some point in time, maybe at the moment of culmination, we run out of bombs. And suddenly we're not blanketing Western Iran, and suddenly the surviving missiles come out and the massive launches take place that overwhelm defenses, and then we have a problem. That's why X100 is what's needed. But we'll also be taking out leadership, and we'll also be encouraging violent demonstrations in the streets. We have the students already primed. We see the paramilitary starting to talk to one another, the Kurds talking to the Baluch, talking to the Lar, talking to the Azeris, talking to the MEK. I don't know if the MEK talks to anybody, but the monarchists. And you said, how does this play out? If I were a CA paramilitary, and I never have been one, but I've worked closely with them, I would be briefing the following in the White House Situation Room. That, Mr. President, we are going to decapitate Iran. We're going to jam the hell out of their signals so they're not going to be able to talk to the Iranian people. While their streets are going to be on fire, there's going to be chaos, and the troops that are supposed to be responding, we're going to be blowing up before they get out of their barracks. We know where they all are because we already did a dress rehearsal. And then at the appropriate time, we have paramilitary units here, 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 and here that we control. We will have case officers on the ground, and we're just going to basically be driving through the streets of Tehran. Now, here's the gamble. Will the Iranians come out in the streets by the millions and confront these people? I'm not picking on you, Rachel. I just want to ask you the following question, though. If you woke up one day in Austin, Texas, and you looked out and police cars were on fire, cops were dead, and pickup trucks of Mexican cartel members were riding through fully armed, what's your go-to move? Hunker down?
I was going to say, I'm not going out there. I'm curious to see for the Iranian people, though, and also because you bring up an interesting situation here, right? Because you look at the Iranian people and you go, okay, it's not, because I feel like many Americans can be more complacent, right? For the Iranians, this is the final war, the existential war that they have been preparing for decades now. And even though, yes, the U.S. has been preparing, the U.S. has been preparing for a lot of wars. So what kind of a situation does that put us in? Do you think that the U.S. military is prepared for what it would take to not just carry out the decapitation strikes? Maybe they're successful, but then to take that next step of...
No, there's not going to be a next step. There's no boots on the ground. If there were boots on the ground, we'd have to have 250,000 to 500,000 troops already deployed in the region. We don't. So the CIA is responsible for the ground game. This is a purely CIA operation. But now I'm going to make the following observation. Again, I probably am going to anger a lot of people who think that I'm encouraging this to happen. I'm not. But Rachel, remember Venezuela when Maduro was in power? And remember how everybody said, we bomb 5 million people are going to rally in the streets around this guy. The people of Venezuela are behind him 100%. Turns out that the CIA bought everybody. We got rid of Maduro, and we own Venezuela. We own Venezuela. How many American troops are on the ground in Venezuela? None. But we own it. The CIA, I believe, has a plan in Iran that's premised by a lot of preparatory work. When you have 100,000 Starlink terminals on the ground in Iran communicating, that's ground game. That means you were already in Iran. When you were able to build covert drone factories and operate them for a decade without being detected, that's ground game. You're there. When you're able to assassinate Iranian scientists in downtown Tehran, that's ground game. And the other thing that we're finding out is, the Iranians are their own worst enemy. And what I mean by that is they're very intelligent people. I mean, one of the things that surprised me when I was originally doing research in the Iranian nuclear weapons program is the number of peer-reviewed PhD theses that are published in Iran every year. Peer-reviewed mean out there for the whole world to look at. Iranian universities produce the highest percentage of peer-reviewed PhD work in the world. It's definitely in the Middle East. These guys are smart, but they are also people that want to be part of the West. Even within the government today, the Iranian president is not anti-West. He is looking for an opportunity to repair relations with the West. They are desperate for sanctions relief. They have not fully committed. You remember when Raisi died, before he died, he and his foreign minister were fully committed to the Kazan BRICS summit. They were going to go there, and Iran was going to fully commit to BRICS and the whole thing, jump in with both feet. Then he died, and the new president and his foreign minister went, not so fast, not so fast. And they sort of pulled back. Why? Because they weren't ready to make the pivot. They were still looking at the West going, hey, can we try again? I know we had a bad first date, but I don't know. I like you. I think you dig me too. I think we could go out and, let's see if we can have a better date, kind of thing. That, and there's enough Iranians there that are interfacing with the West. There's enough Iranian businessmen that are continuing to maintain contacts with the West. And remember, and this is the part that everybody tends to forget, who's the number one controller of business in Iran today? The Revolutionary Guard Command. If you remember at the end of the Iran-Iraq War, there was a man who became president. I can't remember his name, but he had the white, they all have white turbans, but he basically is part of the deal with the Revolutionary Guard post-war. He instead of demobilizing them, he empowered them by giving them the ability to do business contracts. And so they took over a lot of real estate development. They built up contracting, ability to defense industry and all this stuff. And they're doing business in Iran, which means they're interfacing with people outside of Iran, including the West. Now I'll put on my CIA hat. And I'm Scott Ritter, station chief of the Iran, mission center in Munich, because we don't operate inside Iran anymore. So I'm in Munich, and I'm watching all these Iranian guys come in here, either directly from the Revolutionary Command or their proxies coming in by extension. And do I just sit there and go, oh, geez, there's a lot of Iranians here. How interesting. Or do I say, let's recruit a whole bunch of them? And recruiting Iranians is surprisingly easy, because all I have to do is get the 33-year-old Iranian businessman who's never been out of the country before, and I get him to a Berlin bar, and I put drinks into him. And now I got him drunk. And then I introduce him to, whatever you want to call her, Gertrude, or whatever the cute German girl is, and they go upstairs and they do the thing. And I got it on video camera. I've videoed it from every angle possible. And then I take the guy the next morning while his head hurts, and I said, hey, Mohammed, you have a good time last night? Because it sure looked like you did to me. And Mohammed's looking at this, and I go, it's a come to Jesus moment right now, Mohammed. Because you see, this videotape, I've got it in an envelope. It's going to your mission. And when your director of mission sees this, you're screwed. Your wife's going to leave you. You'll never see your kids again. You'll probably die. Your life's over. The good news is, I can keep you alive. You can go home. You can have your wife. You can have your children. You can do all this stuff. But you work for me now, Mohammed. You work for me. This is one of the reasons why I didn't go in the CIA, because this is horrible, this kind of manipulation, but it happens all the time. And Muslims are the easiest people in the world to fall into this trap, because Muslim men live a sexually repressed life in their respective societies. They come out to the West and they can go hog wild. And we just take advantage of that. And the CIA has been corrupting Muslims, Iranian scientists, Iranian businessmen, technicians for decades. And then we send them back and they're in there. And then we help promote their careers. We let things happen. You need a contract? We'll get you a contract. Now you can go in and say, I'm the guy responsible for the multi-million-dollar contract. They go, well, let's promote you. Let's get you in. And next thing you know, we got everybody inside Iran. I think that's what's happened. I think the CIA has a huge grip on the Revolutionary Guard command, on that infiltrated every aspect of Iranian society. And I think when the time comes, remember I talked about the pilot hitting the kill switch to kill the radars? Mm-hmm. Look what happened in Venezuela. It wasn't just the kill switch to kill the radars. Trump has admitted that. The CIA hit the kill switch on Venezuelan society. There was no reaction. None. Clicked, and everybody they owned went, we go into passive mode. And I have a feeling that we're going to hit a kill switch in Iran. Now, the question is, are the Iranians good? Because, you know who was really good at taking out the kill switch? The Iraqis. I know personally, because I unfortunately got involved in something I didn't want to get involved in. I didn't know I was involved in at the time, but I, helped infiltrate 12 CIA paramilitary operatives inside Iraq who were there to kill the president. And they were there to interface with special forces of the Special Republican Guard. And they had been working out of Amman, sending in communications equipment, the whole thing. And my inspection was supposed to trigger what I'm talking about, trigger a crisis where we come in and we bomb all the security except the 3rd Battalion of the Special Republican Guard, which the CIA had bought. And they were going to go in and kill Saddam and take over the government. And about the week before I came in, they surrounded the 3rd Battalion and they killed everybody, the Iraqi government, because they had rounded up the guys coming in. They had the listening in on everything. They knew everything. And they sent the last message to David Manners, the station chief in Amman, and said, we killed everybody. And they clicked the off switch and the CIA operation went dead. And I later on got pulled into an alley by Iraqi security services and asked what I knew about this. And if they believed that I was part of it, I don't think I was coming out of that alley. I mean, it was one of those come to Jesus moments. But so I know how they operate. And have the Iranians trumped them? Because the CIA may be operating under the impression that they've done all this, but the Iranians aren't stupid. Some clues were given. I watched, social media accounts where Iranian professors left in June and then left again in December and are now on the other side broadcasting. I'm like, wow, why did the CIA allow this to happen? Because if I'm the Iranian counterintelligence guy, I go, Professor, when did you last travel to Germany? Who did you travel with? And when you came back, what did you do? Who did you meet with? This is why, remember Valerie Plame, the CIA officer who got outed by Scooter Libby back during the lead up to the Iraq War? Because her husband had gone and investigated the Nigerian uranium yellow cake thing and said it's just garbage. So to get him, they outed his wife. She was what they call a non-official cover, a knock. That means that she was in Europe and she's there as a civilian. She's not working as a diplomat in the embassy with a diplomatic passport. She's naked to the world. If she gets arrested, there ain't no protection. She's there running a civilian cover job. And when you out her, every counterintelligence service goes, really? All right, let's reverse engineer. Where did she go? Who did she meet? And those people get rounded up, innocent or guilty. They get rounded up. So this professor comes out and starts tweeting crap about the Iranians are reverse engineering that. So, there's a chance the CIA is going to say, hit the kill switch, and it doesn't do it, or it's a fizzle. There's a chance. But the president seems to be extraordinarily cocky into believing that he can hit a kill switch on the regime. And you couple that kill switch with suppression by aircraft, with uprisings, with paramilitaries, and you end up with a bunch of scared Iranian people in their apartment building looking out the window, seeing their security forces dead and seeing flames and seeing pickup trucks with armed men running around saying, stay in your home. We are in control.
Yeah.
And then it's over. So I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I can tell you that it won't involve American boots on the ground. The key thing is what I'd really like to see is that the military comes back and says, X minus 20 can't be done. Mr. President, take the nuclear deal. I will be so happy. I'll be the happiest man in the world because then nobody dies. Americans, because we're going to lose a lot of Americans, just so people understand. This ain't going to be bloodless. We're going to lose guys. Everybody's out there shedding tears about the Chief Warrant Officer 5 hero. I mean, again, you don't have to support the Maduro operation or nothing. That man's a hero, straight up hero. Got his legs blown off midair and continued to fly the mission and do the job. And he got the Medal of Honor and he earned the Medal of Honor. And we're all sitting there looking at this guy and understand that our military is full of people like him. Good men, good women who join to serve their country. They don't pick the fights. The fights are picked for them. They're just called upon to do a job. And nobody wants to see them come home in a casket with a funeral, a family mourning their loss. You saw that man's wife next to him, the admiration in her eyes, the love that she has for him. What if he had died? What happened to her life? Do they have children? I don't know. But my point is, anybody promoting this war is a fool, because this war will result in dead Americans. And there's nothing about Iran today that's worthy of the life of a single American. And certainly there's nothing in Iran today that's worth the United States slaughtering millions, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Iranians when it's all said and done. I've been to Iran. These are wonderful people. I mean, my God, wonderful people. Intelligent as the day is long. Cultured. The Persian culture goes back centuries. These people are aware of it. Open-hearted. I mean, just a little story. Before I went to Iran, I met with Ambassador Zarif. He was the Iranian ambassador to the UN. He went on to become the foreign minister and all this. But and I said, I want to go to Iran. This is what I want to do. He said, yeah, we can help make that happen. I said, okay, now what do I do just practical wise? How do I live there? Can I bring credit cards? He went, don't worry about it. Credit cards, sure. And I threw in like $1,500 in my wallet of cash, and I had credit cards. I get to Iran, I register at the hotel, and I go to put down a credit card, and they go, we don't take credit cards. I said, really? And does anybody? Nope, we've been cut off from the system. No credit cards. I'm like, damn, I'm in trouble now because I'm going to run out of money like in 3 days. And I got no money. And then when I tried to check out, even if I wanted to leave, I'm walking away from an unpaid hotel bill in Iran. The quickest way to Iran prison, I've just found a direct route. Do not pass go. And I went to the bank, and I said, I've got an issue here. Is there any way that we can get money wired in? Nope, nothing. Nope. And I'm walking out dejected, and the bank teller, a female, comes out. Now they won't touch you because that's Mr. Ritter. Yes. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but go down 3 blocks. There's a hotel. She gave me the name of the hotel. Go in the hotel, go downstairs, and there's a gift shop. Go in the gift shop and ask for Ibrahim and tell him your problem. I think he'll find a way to help you. And I went, wow, thank you. She didn't have to do that. And I went to the hotel, I found Ibrahim, and I explained to him what was going on. And he went, first of all, he asked me a lot of questions to make sure this wasn't a setup, but then he's like, okay, what's going to happen is your wife is going to meet my cousin in New Jersey, and she's going to give him $5,000. And then my cousin is going to call me and say that your wife has given him $5,000. And then I'm going to give you $4,990, because there's a fee or whatever. But I will give you the cash, and then you can go and exchange it into reals and all that. And we did it. But my point is, this is right after Ahmadinejad was elected. And I'm a notorious figure. I mean, I was walking in downtown Tehran, and people were coming up going, you're Scott Ritter. Yeah. Why are you here? Trying to be friendly. No. We've been watching you. One question was, are you going to be speaking to our parliament? I said, well, why? Because when you went to Iraq, you spoke to the parliament, and then the United States bombed them. Are you speaking to our parliament? I said, no, I'm not speaking to your parliament. They're like, good. But the point is, they could easily have screwed me. Easily. And they didn't. They did the exact opposite. They worked with me to make sure that my time in Iran was pleasant, that I had a great time. These are wonderful people. And the last thing I want is harm to come to these people. So, I hope there is no war at all. And unfortunately, Rachel, I gotta go. I have a hard drop.
Yeah, and I know a lot of moving parts there, a lot that is going into this campaign, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today to break down all of the latest here. Scott Ritter, a former UN weapons inspector and U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
If anything in this video resonated with you, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to keep up with all of my work, make sure that you're subscribed to my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. That's where you'll find ad-free videos and new weekly episodes of my exclusive series for paid subscribers called Sanctioned. You can also check out Sanctioned over on my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Rachel Blevins. As always, thank y'all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.